Hello, friends. How are you? This is Cashrules. My name is Nick Foley. I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, the one we all know and love, the founder, the starter of Cashrules, Nick Gilmore. Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Doing well, doing well. We're still humming from last week's episode. It was a far-reaching and deep dive into all kinds of business, not only business acumen, but business with real estate and small business and things like that. And I think it was a really popular episode for the fact that lots of people wanted to chime in and give us some questions. So because we decided to go live today, which is really great. So we're live on YouTube and here we are doing our thing. So I'm excited to get into today's episode. How about yourself?
Obviously, like this is the first live one we've done, so this is pretty exciting. Tons of questions still, so that's pretty exciting. And yeah, just based on what we've looked at already, I'm excited to talk about some of these subjects.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's one of those things where people are listening to the content that we're putting out and all the wonderful expertise that you provide and some of the insights that I provide and asking lots of questions, which I think is so important. And I think part of this why this podcast works so well is not only we're two handsome guys. No, I'm just kidding. Face for radio, I have. You're a handsome guy though. But not only that is that we try to we speak authentically from experience. And I know let's start with that, Nick. A lot of people have podcasts out there, and a lot of people, will pretend they're experts at a certain subject because they've had a year of schooling or they think that they know, every single thing. They've got maybe one property or they've started one business and they want to make all these courses or they want to, do these podcasts. But you did something a little different in the sense that you for You good?
We're back.
We're back. Technical difficulties. So just getting back there. Welcome to technology, I guess. But getting back to that question, Nick, like a lot of people, like I was saying, a lot of people start podcasts and things like that, and they start them relatively early. But you were 10, 12 years of probably a little bit more than that, really doing a deep dive into business and learning the ins and outs and the ropes and things like that. And talk a little bit why you started this and how you decided to do it in a reverse angle where you got all the experience and then now you're coming back to it.
So I'm glad we're touching on this because like I've wanted to say something the last few times and just haven't had the opportunity. But people will start, or it's cool to be not that I'm saying we're anywhere close to this, but people want to become famous on the internet, or they want this to have this YouTube channel, or they want to be Instagram famous or whatever. But they have nothing to be famous or nothing to be known for. So quite frankly, I didn't even have social media. I did when I was much, much younger, but there was a long period of time when I didn't have any social media. I had no Instagram. I had no Facebook. I had nothing. And I reintroduced myself to social media when I opened our first retail store. Okay. So, and I still didn't have it personally. So what I did was, I'd post specials and all that other stuff. But what I'm trying to say is I didn't have social media because I didn't care. I was focused on growing my business and growing my brand and building and growing and doing all that shit. And the social media wasn't important to me. So like I said to you the other day, I didn't even know who Gary Vee was or who Grant Cardone was, or any of the guys who operate in this space. Tony Robbins I knew because he's been around like forever, but I didn't know these guys because I wasn't on social media. And it sounds so crazy, especially if you're in this space, but it's true. That's a true story. I didn't know who they were. I have a huge respect for them and they're awesome and I love them, but I didn't expose myself to that because I was busy building a business. So what you'll see oftentimes is they'll come in and they want to be, known for something. So they'll start to produce content, and they'll start to speak on things that they really don't have any fucking clue about. As a matter of fact, they know jack shit about it, but they'll read something on the internet or read 2 pages in a magazine, and then they'll spew out this information that they think is going to get them views. And unfortunately, that's poisonous to the futurepreneur because they think that this is proven information. So the one thing that I wanted to do when I started this, and I've said it to you many times, is there's always a reason for something. And my reason was genuine when I started Cashrules and started the social media platform, because I genuinely wanted to give back and genuinely wanted to help and be that guy who could help a young man or a young woman or a kid or whoever try to take the leap or get enough courage in themselves to get into business. So like you said, we did it reverse. We built business, we learned things, we've got a proven track record for business and doing things. I've done it for 12, 13 years, and I'm 35. So a huge portion of my life has been dedicated to that. And it was 7 days a week. So it wasn't like I was doing this Monday to Friday. And I want to obviously give that back to anybody who wants to listen and anybody who can take value from this. And that's why we do it, to provide value.
It's really interesting you say that, Nick, because that text that you sent me, I mean, for those of you that know us or that know the episodes, know that you and I, we talk often. And it was funny when I read that text, I was probably watching the Leafs or something, losing my mind. But anyway, that's a different episode. But when I got that text, I actually laughed a little bit. And the reason being is you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. And Gary V says the exact same thing, Nick, that you say without knowing that he said it. You know what I mean? And you didn't know because you didn't know about him until you started getting into this. And that's one of the things that he says. He's like, I have a lot to say now because I said nothing for 11 years. I just ate dirt, right?
I love that.
And he talks about clouds and dirt, and that's a whole thing that he does. But like, he goes, I was just quiet for 11 years building my business and building my brand. And I'm not famous because I have a platform. I'm famous because I built my brands, I built my businesses, and then used my platform to talk to other people to help, to want to get them to follow the same kind of thing. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. We're not trying, we are doing here is, you've got the business, and I'm learning about business and doing, different things as well. But like for yourself, you've built this empire in real estate and in business, and now you're using this platform to serve. And, and I think that's what I really want our listeners to understand and learn. And I think that's why our popular episodes are the ones when we're asking or answering questions. So with that in mind, there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about today that we discussed. Now, believe it or not, folks, Nick and I spend a lot of time. We do plan this. We've got a wonderful producer in Ash Bear, and we do plan these episodes, and we go out and we talk about what we wanted to talk about. But one of the things that we wanted to give you as far as our listenership and our viewership is different angles and different looks and different interpretations of other ways to do things. And so if you're a young, solopreneur or just started a business, or just out of university, and you're into the finance and you're Googling finance and you're Googling like gurus, if you will, one name you're going to come across, and I know you know what I'm going to say, is Dave Ramsey. And so Dave Ramsey is like your old uncle. I don't know. There he is. And he's like, and that being an old uncle is not a bad thing. I guess I'm an old uncle. But Dave Ramsey has a way of doing things. And he's got these 7 steps to like, there it is. There. Oh, he's all over the place. He's moving. It's faster than he looks. He's got these 7 steps to, building wealth and in financial security. And so 2 questions I'm going to ask you to start, Nick. First thing, I want to get your interpretation of Dave Ramsey, what you think about, not him as a person, who gives a shit what he's like as a person. We don't know him, but what he puts out as far as his businesses and his teachings. And number 2, I thought it'd be interesting for us to go through his 7 steps and maybe talk about different ways that you can use his 7 steps to build wealth and and financial securities. Okay, sound good? So first question: how? What's your interpretation of Mr. Ramsey here?
Okay, my interpretation of his advice in regards to finances and in regards to paying off debt, my opinion about that is his advice sucks. Okay? It's good if you're somebody who wants to just pay off your debt and just live the same for the rest of your life and never grow, never get more, never do more. And what he tries to present this idea of paying off debt, okay? So you pay off your debt with your cash that's coming in. And this is all, assuming that you have a job that can do this, by the way, because he's not looking at, the way that we all started, where you're making 20 grand a year, 25 grand a year, and maybe you've accumulated a little too much debt and you have a car payment. And he's talking about putting savings away and doing all this other stuff. Like, it's not reality. It's reality if you come from a rich family. And maybe he did. I don't know. I don't know his background. I'm sure he's a wonderful man. But this advice is not for the regular grassroots entrepreneur or even a regular person who's not coming from a ton of money. So as we're going to get into, breaking down these steps and really digging into what he says, the advice isn't for the average Joe. And I think it could be a lot more harmful than it can good, in my opinion.
Well, and then I think that's a really good opportunity for us to dig into this, Nick, because David Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, who's a huge real estate guru, has some he likes him as a person, but thinks his model is, he's got some very choice words. Let's just leave that phrase out there. We don't use the words that he uses, but actually you actually use worse words. But here's the thing, he just doesn't like the idea of the model. So people that are listening to us are probably like, okay, Nick, what are the model? What is the model? So what I thought I'd do, Nick, is I'd go through like the 7 steps of, David Ramsey's financial freedom ways to get through it. And I think maybe it might be an opportunity, if you agree with it, or if we agree with it, then maybe we say, hey, yeah, good. Or what could be why it's not good, and perhaps maybe an alternative for our listeners, right? And maybe we can have the Nick squared model of financial freedom. There you go. Write that down back there. Nick squared model of financial freedom. All right. So Cashrules. Well, how about this? Cashrules model of financial freedom. Maybe we can have that as a, I'm just spitballing here. This is live, folks. Here we go. I love it. All right. So the first one he says is $1,000 emergency fund. First thing you should do, no matter whatever you're doing, is save $1,000 for an emergency fund. So you lose your job, you got $1,000. This is for an emergency fund. What are your thoughts?
It's great. Everybody should have an emergency fund. I wouldn't necessarily put a value on it. $1,000 doesn't go very far, especially nowadays, in regards to the price of food, in regards to the price of gas, in regards to the price of anything. So I think that number is low. The idea of an emergency fund, I think, is key. Something you do not touch unless you have no other options. I like that idea. I don't agree with the number. So I'll give that one a green light.
All right, green light. And that's the thing. And I think you're right. I think if you can put aside a little bit, like you said, if you're making, 15, 18, 20 bucks an hour, and you can find a way to put aside a certain percentage of your paycheck so that you do have that, rainy day money, I putting a value on it. Yeah. I mean, it might be an arbitrary number, but something to get to. You get to 1,000, all right, sweet. Get to 1,500. Get to 1,500, try to get to 2. Next thing, pay off all debt using the snowball method.
So we were kind of chit-chatting about this before and trying to understand what he means. And I think we came to the agreement that it was pay off your smallest debt first and then work your way bigger.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So the term is, the one account pays off the accounts starting with the smallest balances first while paying the minimum payments of their larger debts and working your way up.
I don't like it. Attack the largest interest first, in my opinion. And there's several other factors that play into your credit score. So if you can get some below a certain usage, So we've talked about this before, a certain percentage of your usage. If you can get below that, then you'll start repairing your credit score quicker than getting the debt paid down. But what Dave Ramsey likes to do is make a guide for idiots or people who have no self-control. And if that's you, which is not any of our listeners, but if that's you and you have no self-control and you aren't able to manage your money properly and you really just want to listen to somebody tell you what to do, follow his rules. But you're going to pay more interest. You're going to pay more money. It's going to cost you more money. And if you continue following his steps, every single penny in your pocket is very, very important. So I don't know why he would say that. I think it's more of a mindset thing to pay off a small one than pay off the next one. But you need to change your whole mindset, not just one small credit card at a time.
Yeah,
red light, right. That's garbage.
Yeah, green red light on that one. I do feel like tackle your big interest one, and if you're looking for markers to look by, so what you said, it's a mindset thing. I think it's just like, smallest debt, get it out of the way, got it down to zero, good for you, congratulations, you paid that off. But I think that if you're looking for markers or you're looking for triggers for your goals to pay off this debt, I think you could set them for yourself. So if you have, say, a $5,000 credit card, then set a goal for yourself to get that credit card down to $4,500, right? And then, so again, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're paying the high interest one, but you're also, setting a goal for your higher number of your biggest debt, right? Mm-hmm. So you got it 4,500 by the end of November, perfect. Okay, the goal now is 3,500 by the end of January, right? Might be tough, it's Christmas, but that's called discipline. And so I think you're right. I think there's ways to get. So that's a big red light. So we got one green light, one red light. Next one. 3 to 6 months of expenses and savings.
Green light. I like that. I've heard that advice before from actually a mentor of mine. And it wasn't in regards to personal finance. It was regards to business finance. And the advice was, how much should you have in the account before you start taking dividends? And the answer was 3 months expenses. So if you shut the doors, click, did no more business, you have enough money to pay for 3 months. So I'm going to say that will work in personal life as well, as business expenses tend to be exponentially higher than personal expenses. So I'll give that the green light.
Good. I like it. Yeah, no, I got nothing to add to that. I think you're right. I think, if you can find a way to find 3 to 6 months of expense savings, it's kind of the FU money, as they say, right? Something happens and you're just like, you know what? I got 6 months worth of expenses saved up. I'm good to go. And expenses mean what, Nick?
Any recurring costs in your life, i.e. payments for a car, mortgage, food. Those are a couple of basic examples that are like super, super, super necessities. Right. Maybe not a car, but housing. So mortgage, rent, whatever. And food obviously is a non-negotiable.
Yeah. Invest 15% of household income.
Again, that's trash. It's all relative. It's so relative to your situation. So if you have no discipline, okay, you've got no discipline, then listen to this guy. But you need to set up a plan that works for you and your family, right? Because maybe you're just going into starting a business. Well, then you can't do that. Or maybe you can be super disciplined and you can save more. But there's no exact amount that you can put on these numbers unless you break down each individual situation. And 15% of household income, I'm going to guess that he's talking about gross income, so your top line before you pay tax on it. That can be tough. That can be really tough, especially for a younger couple, a younger family. And yeah, red light.
Yeah, no, like you said, it can be tough. And not only that, when it's tough like that, you got a young family, you're just starting out and you're trying to do a couple of things here. It can be also discouraging, right? And then all of a sudden it's in the impulse buyings happen and mm-hmm. the lack of discipline happens. And, you're not going to get to where you want to go when you're discouraged or you don't have the right mindset for it. Right. So makes sense. College fund. Next thing, have a college fund.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, and he's in the States. So this is different for us because there's a huge issue down there with student debt, student borrowing. And in Canada, we have OSAP. So if you qualify for, or in Ontario, we have OSAP. So if you qualify for it, and you can speak a little better on this than I can. Obviously, you operate in that field, but it's a 0% loan to students who qualify up until a certain point, and then you've got to start repaying that loan. And I believe it's still 0% interest unless you let it go for a long time. So save for a student fund. Okay, if you can't qualify for OSAP, yes, that's important. Typically, you can get pretty favorable loans from the bank if you're a student. So I'm not saying that that's a bad idea either. Again, discipline is huge. Don't go out and get fucking wrecked with your buddies and start funneling 40s of fucking whiskey because you just got a $15,000 line of credit. So you need to be disciplined, people. This is very important. But debt used intelligently will build wealth intelligently. Okay? So student debt, again, we're commenting from, our geography where we are. I would say OSAP loans like here in Ontario, not a bad thing. Again, I don't know a lot about the situation down there, but I know that he just wrote a book on it too, because I was doing a little bit of research on him, and it was something about students getting buried in debt. Didn't dig too far into it, but again, saving for school is never a bad thing. So I'm going to green light that.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I think it is, and I think you get the opportunity if you have anything, especially when it's loan payments or things like that have no interest, then it is worth looking at, right? Because you're paying the principal on your right away when you're paying it back, and it's opening up the opportunity for you to get yourself more education. In some cases, if you're not working for yourself, more education means better opportunities in your life, and that means you're going to be making more money. So, I mean, as long as there is an opportunity there for that. So,
is it Ontario or Canada for OSAP? It's Ontario, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's every government. It's a provincial thing, mandated, so every government has their own understanding of it. Pay off your home.
Okay, that's it. Pay off your home. Like, is there any?
End of sentence.
Okay. Entry. Well, no. Again, huge variables. What's your interest rate? What's your term like? How much do you still owe? How old are you? These things are so important to this. Your home is, generally speaking, the lowest interest loan you are going to pay in your life, unless it's like a 0% student loan. So I don't know why you would rush to pay that off when you can take that money and deploy it elsewhere to earn you more money. I know why he's saying it, because he's just trying to have you debt free and just operate in this land of fucking huge cash where you're just cash rich. But it's unfortunately, unless you come from a really wealthy family where you're getting a big head start, you need to use the tools available to us in order to succeed. And, whether you like them or you don't, the big banks are the tool that we use to leverage money to get more money as regular people, which most of us are. So we take the money from the bank, we leverage it, and we grow it. So paying your house off sooner than, not to mention, there's penalties involved with paying off a mortgage too soon. But there's prepayment options and all that stuff too. But without getting boring, I would say, unless you took out like a private mortgage that's a really huge high interest rate, if it's a really good interest rate, don't pay it off. So I would red light that unless the circumstances are fucked up.
Yeah, and I think that there's also something to be said about using the equity in your home too. Talk a little bit about that, Nick. I mean, the reality of it is that if you have this home of yours and you don't, and you have a little bit of equity in it, like you mentioned at the top there, like what would you do? So let's say you have a $400,000 home and you have a $250,000 mortgage left on it. What would be, or maybe $150,000, $200,000 mortgage, just for easy math. What would you do with that if you wanted to grow your portfolio and say business or real estate or something like that?
I would take out a line of credit against it, home equity line of credit for as much as I could get. And I would take
Yeah.
that money and I would use it for something else. I've done this.
Yeah.
Like I have done this. I'm
I
telling
just finished doing
everyone,
that. Yeah.
it's happened.
Yeah.
I've done it many, many times. I'm not saying that this is for everybody because sometimes debt makes people sick. So it doesn't hurt to have a mortgage on your house. And if that's you, that's fine. And you don't want to grow, then do your thing and maybe just pay it off slowly. But if you're the person who wants more and you're the person who wants to build your business and build your personal net worth or have a bunch of investments or learn about stocks or whatever, you need to leverage these tools, people. So if it was me, $200,000 mortgage, I know because I've done my research, Nick, that I can get up to 80% of the value of that home as a combined mortgage plus line of credit, or up to 65% of the entire value of the home, whichever, my friend, is available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, you take it for what it's worth, but I've done it many times, and to me, it's cheap money. I'm not a huge fan of that term, cheap money, but it's true. It's affordable money, I guess, and you can use that money as long as you're not going out and buying speedboats and cars and a bunch of stupid stuff. Then you can use it, you can invest it, you can grow it, and ultimately build your net worth.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing, and you use what we always say that use what's available to you, right? If you're a young
Mhm.
couple and you have a home or and things, and you want to get into this kind of real estate, or you want to get into that because money is inexpensive. Getting money is inexpensive right now, and I know the prices are astronomical, but percentage or interest rates and on mortgages and things are really really good. And right now, as we take this, or as we talk about this, so yeah, using that money, using the leverage you have or the equity you have in your home, I think is always a good opportunity, good idea. But just like you said at the top of this, Nick, where it's going to be the cheapest, the cheapest loan you're ever going to have outside of, I guess a student loan, right? So yeah, this is the way to do it. And that's how you build your wealth. That's how you build your portfolios. You take that money out of your home and then you present it to maybe you're buying Airbnbs or houses that you're going to use for Airbnbs or long-term rentals or whatever it is, and using the money you have available to you is always a good opportunity, I think, to grow wealth.
And Ramsey is, I don't know how old he is. I know he's a little bit older, but like if you look back in time, like late 80s, 70s, at least in Canada, mortgage rates were crazy high, right? So like I can remember hearing this story about, I think it was late 1980s. I was talking to somebody, a real estate investor friend of mine who's a little bit older, and they were like, yeah, well, we had mortgages in the late 80s and we were paying like 18, 19% interest.
Yeah.
And when the interest rates were like that and even higher, because I've heard like 30%. When that's the case, paying off your home, yes, that changes the whole situation. Now, homes were a lot less; they weren't as expensive, so relative, there was that difference. But honestly, I wouldn't. It's a very old school mentality, and when the money's not expensive and you can service it and you're not overextending yourself, then I would listen to somebody who's actually operating currently in the market, which is people like us.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, right? Like, I mean, I think you mentioned about age as well, Nick, because I was over at my dad and my mom's the other day, and we're just kind of having a conversation. They had some friends over, and their friends said they're like, looking forward to December 2022. And I said, oh, why is that? And they're like, because we're gonna have a mortgage burning party. And for me, in my head, like the first thing that came to my head was like, oh wow, like you've got so much equity in your home, like you know what I mean. But at the same time, I also recognize they're 70 years old, so I would never say anything other than congratulations. That's great. Because I think that's what you were saying. Like, we're in the game and we're, in our 30s and early 40s and like doing it, right? Using the equity that we have in our homes and businesses and things like that to buy and sell and what have you. And I think that there comes to an age, and maybe it's Dave Ramsey's age, where people, it's appealing to have, no mortgage payment coming out of your, old age pension coming in, no mortgage payment coming out. That might appeal to some people, right? And make no mistake, though, Dave Ramsey is very well diversified. I bet he doesn't teach it, but I think you and I can both agree that he probably has stocks, he probably has real estate assets, in abundance. I'm sure he's not just he's not sitting on mountains of cash. Just doesn't make any sense.
Sure. I mean, he's a smart guy. There's no question about it. And he's done well.
Yeah.
And he's got a platform. People listen to him. And I mean, I'm not saying that what he's saying is terrible or it's horrible advice, because it will put you in a good position, but it's not going to grow from where you are. It's going to just allow you to be stagnant. And it's going to be really tough to execute if your salary is not as high as I think people who he speaks to, because from the language he uses and from the situations that he talks about, it sounds like he's talking about two kind of average income married couple individuals. Okay, so from the sounds of it, they're making a pretty decent combined income, or if he's talking to a single person, they make okay money. But he's not talking about the Nick Gilmore who was earning 20 grand, trying to pay off debt and grow a business. That's not who he's speaking to, and that's fine, because that's not who I'm listening to or was listening to.
Yeah, no, makes complete sense. Build wealth and give.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gonna give a green light to that, but here's the thing: you don't need to give money to give. Okay. And I'm not saying that, like, I love to give back to the community. That's probably one of my most favorite things to do in business is give back and donate to teams and donate to whatever. There's just local community organizations. I love to do it. I do it all the time. It's very important to me. And it's also very important to business because the community is what supports you and you need to support them in turn. But you can also donate other things. So if you have a mentality to build wealth and then just give, I think that's not really the right reasons. It's not the right mindset. You need to put yourself in a position where you're able to give back, be it money, be it time, be it knowledge, mentorship, different things. Giving back can mean different things to different people. I think it's important to be in a good position so you can give back, but I'm going to say this, you don't need to be wealthy to give back.
No, I think that, and I agree. So we'll put that one as a kind of a yellow light, basically. It's like, you don't have to build wealth to be able to give back to society. And I think you just, you nailed it. So here's the thing. We just talked about Dave Ramsey and his steps and things like that. What are the ways, because my mentor told me one time that you're never going to get wealthy by saving. Right? Like just by trying to save your dollars. You don't grow wealth that way. And I understand what he means by that. And so my question to you, Nick, being in this industry and you're building buildings, you're buying buildings, you're selling buildings, and you're in the real estate industry and you've got a wonderful portfolio. What is a way that young people getting into the industry, whether it's real estate or business, can grow wealth? Like what would be your foundational your foundation? What are some 3 foundational things that you follow that we could give our listeners on that? Here's a good way to build wealth, or a good start anyway.
So understand what wealth is to you. That's number 1. So you need to understand, is wealth to me having a bunch of family time? Is wealth to me having a whole bunch of money? Is wealth to me having a work-life balance? You need to understand that about yourself before you can do anything. Because if you don't understand where you're going, you can't understand how to get there. So number 1, understand what wealth is to you. Then number 2, what are the tools available to you that you can access. Okay, what can I? Okay, what can I access in order to get me where I want to go? So let's use building wealth. Okay, let's use I want a lot of money. Okay, so number two, what are the tools available to me? Do I own my house? No. Okay, well I can't get equity out of that. Can I borrow from my credit cards? No, they're maxed out. Okay, well, shit. So I can't use that. What can I do? Well, there's government organizations available that I could maybe get a small business loan for, even though my credit's okay. I'm making all the minimum payments, blah, blah, blah. So number two, identify tools available to you. We just looked at a couple different options in 30 seconds that somebody in one particular situation could access. So we do that. And then you get a loan and you're on your way. So number two, and there you go again, get a loan, Dave Ramsey. So use the tools available to you. And number three, and this is the fucking most important thing, people, stay focused. Okay. This is a multiple part answer. Stay focused, stay consistent, and don't give up, because it's going to take a long time. It's not going to come easy. So oftentimes people will start something and they're like, oh, it's going okay. And they keep doing it. And then it's like, well, it's kind of grown, but I don't know. And then eventually they're like, fuck this. And then they go back to doing what they were doing before. And well, at least I tried, at least I can say I tried. But I go in with the mentality, okay? And this falls into the number three fundamental, okay? The foundational element here. Number three, this falls into it. I will die before my idea does. It didn't work this way. How the fuck am I going to? I woke up every morning and it was dark out, and I would get up and drive and cut meat for like 4 hours and sweep the floors and clean the place and clean the glass and sweep the parking lot. And then when we opened, okay, so this was all, and ask anybody. These are true stories. You can ask anybody who knows me. When we opened at 8 o'clock, so I completed all these tasks by 8 a.m. Then I would talk to customers, get to know them, learn what they liked, learn how they liked stuff cut, carry their groceries out, doing all this stuff. I wasn't up sitting in a fucking high-rise penthouse writing checks, watching my fucking staff on a screen. I was in there grinding it out. I was grinding it. I still grind it out, okay? We've grown and we have an awesome team now, and we're able to diversify and do other things. But don't ever fucking think that you're just going to be complacent and be that person who's just managing a bunch of people and getting all this money, mailbox money, as we were talking about before, because that's not going to happen. It is not going to happen ever. You need to be in there. You need to be in the fucking mud. You need to be grinding it out and put in those years. And I probably had 10 years of fucking business experience personally. Okay. Not to mention that I had worked in several independent businesses and my dad had a business, and forget all that. I had 10 years of experience before I gave one piece of business advice. I wasn't in there for a year fucking telling people how to run businesses. I shut my mouth for 10 years and listened, learned, and built my business, learned my customers and understood them and showed them that I deserve this because I'm going to give to the community what the community needs. And then, and only then, was I successful. So that would be stick-to-itiveness.
Love it. So identify what success means to you or wealth means to you. Identify the tools that you have. Stay focused, stay consistent, stick-to-itiveness, do not give up. And adapt the mindset of I will die before my idea does. I like that. Yeah. And I think one of the things I came across a great quote today, Nick, and it reminded me of, kind of everything that you're saying here. intensity gives you success in the short term. Consistency gives you success in the long.
Yes.
And I just feel like, if you can have that, if you've got an idea and you're just lit up by it, that's great. Lots of people have great ideas that they're lit up by in the short term. What separates most people from pretenders or others is the consistency. One of the best compliments I've ever came across in my life was I guess it was a friend of mine, and he said to me, he's like, "Man, you are so I admire your consistency," right? And that's the one thing we can control, right? Your intensity gives you success in the short term. Consistency gives you success in the long. So I don't know who said that.
It's crazy that you said that, because Jordan and I were just talking about this, and I was the epitome of that guy. I'm still intense, times up by fucking 10. And I was the guy who had to work 7 days a week and had to be in there at first and leave last. And I had to do all this stuff. And when you're growing a business, people, that is important. So I'm not saying don't do that. But like Nick said, okay, in the short term, intensity, yes, that's going to launch your business, okay? That's a spark that gets things going. But it's not sustainable. It is not. I don't care who you are, because there's nobody who's going to work more than me, period. If you're out there, I challenge you. It's not going to happen. People maybe work as much, but it's impossible. You can't. There's no more time. Okay? And my brother was like, when he first came aboard, he's like, you're like a 1980s stockbroker. He's like, you smoke. I don't smoke, but he was just comparing me to these crazy guys who would work 20 hours and do cocaine and smoke 400 cigarettes a day and drink pop and go for drinks. And that wasn't me. I wasn't doing those things, but it was somebody who was living an intense lifestyle, and it was going to come to an end. So the one thing he said is, how do we make this sustainable, right? How do we make this the not Nick Gilmore show where you're just running around like a maniac because you think you're the only one who can do something? And quite frankly, I'm probably the least qualified guy to do anything. So yes, I can build relationships and I can cut meat and I know some real estate and all that stuff, but there's people around me who know 10 million times more than I know about all that stuff. So, and yes, I said 10 million times. So you've got to understand at what point where you can flip the switch from intensity into sustainable mode. And sustainable mode doesn't mean put your feet up on the couch and eat a bag of chips and say, well, everything's okay and I'm a millionaire. No, but it means take a step back, breathe, and understand you are in the long game. You are in the long game, and business is a long game. Business is not a short game, ever. So you're in the long game. Make yourself last, and make yourself last for your fucking family too. Don't be a selfish prick.
Yeah, no, I think it goes back to having a strong, sustainable why, right? So you're offering some great insight here, some strong nuggets, information. Let's switch gears here. I want to take. We have about 15 minutes left in the broadcast, Nick. I want to take some of our listeners' questions. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
All right, so we got it up there. Ash, extraordinary producer here, isn't she? She's just right on it, right away. So shout out to Ash. We don't give her enough credit. Well, we give her all the credit in the world, but we give her a shout out on the episode here. When do you start a business plan for your business? Do you need to have money saved before starting?
Okay. Good question. When do you start a business plan? Well, you start a business plan the second you decide that you're going to start a business. Because again, and we say this all the time, roadmap is the key to success. So you need a plan. You need a plan. What was that quote I posted the other day? Do you remember about the idiot and the with no plan? A genius with an idiot with a plan beats a genius with no plan. Something like that. Yeah. And so perfect example. Business plan, you need it. Okay, you need to know where you're going. You need to know where you're forecasted to go. And I'm not saying go and fucking pay somebody to write a $20,000 business plan. You can get a napkin and a marker and write out what you think this business looks like. How much is it going to cost? All these variables. Do you need to have money saved before starting? Well, you should. You should try. But some people don't. I didn't because I couldn't. Okay, so then you got to explore other opportunities. Do you need to have money saved before starting a business? Yes, it helps. No, if you don't have any. Don't let any one thing stand in your way. Ever. Don't let any one thing stand in your way. Don't let any two things. Don't let any 100 things stand in your way. If you want to do something, then you fucking do it. Period. That's the end of the conversation. Like, I want everybody to know, and I truly, truly, truly mean this from the bottom of my heart. If you want something, if you want to, we talk about business, but this pertains to any piece of life, okay? In wanting something. If you want something and you want it bad enough, just fucking do it, okay? Find out how you're going to do it. Find out your obstacles and find out how you're going to overcome those obstacles. And if your family doesn't like it, then who cares? And if your friends don't like it, then who cares? And if other people don't like it, as long as it's a positive goal or a positive end, I'm not talking about you have a insatiable, you want to go kill somebody, but if you have a goal and you really, really want it, go fucking get it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's ways to do that too, right, Nick? Like, I think one of those things where a lot of people like if you don't have any money, well, then keep your job. Like, I remember when I quit my job as a teacher, and everyone was like, "You're crazy, man! Like, how could you do that?" And I just because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to go out on my own. And I remember I quit my job as a teacher, and I was writing this book that I wanted to write. And I remember taking a job from my buddy on a demolition team so that I could like demolition this house that they were demolishing, right? And he'd just pay me cash. It was like $10 an hour probably or something like that. And I would work from like 6 in the morning till 6 at night at that job. I'd come home, I would eat dinner, and then I would work from like 7 till 1 in the morning on my business, right? And send out emails. And I would say things like, "We in the office of Celebrate the Hero Incorporated would love the opportunity." There's no office. It was just me with no shirt on my parents' basement writing out emails, right? Because my relationship I was in on the time was going through cutbacks, if you will. So I had to move out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, but I was driven to do it. And then I got one email, one response. And, they're like, "Yeah, let's meet tomorrow," or whatever. And here we are. And, 11 years later, I'm still in this racket. So I think what you just said is perfect, Nick. Is like, don't let these obstacles tell you that you're not going to be able to do it. Like, be creative. And by the way, if anybody's listening and they want a business plan, send us an email. Send us an email or drop us a line on Nick's DM or my DMs on Instagram, and let us know that you want. Give us your email, and we will send you a business plan. I've got templates for business plans that you can have, and you go from there. And I download a bunch, and they're free. Just download. You can go on the internet and download them. But go to Cash, listen to Cashrules, and we'll get you those business plans. Just send us a DM either on either of our DMs on Instagram or Twitter or wherever you can find us for Cashrules. Nick Foley Speaks at Gmail, and Gilmore at Gilmores.com, right?
.ca.
.ca. And Gilmore at Gilmores.ca. You heard it here. Do you need to separate a business credit card and a personal one? So let's answer that question first.
So if the context is an existing business, so if you're growing a business, it's a good idea to, because for accounting purposes, obviously, and bookkeeping purposes, and just knowing where your money is going, yes, it's a good idea. But if you're starting a business, then maybe you can't get a business credit card. So sometimes everything's got to go on the personal credit card, and you just got to kind of keep track of where you spent the money and allocate it into the right column.
When in your business development, is it important to have a credit card?
When in your business development, is it important? I wouldn't say it's super important. Like, it's not top 10 things that you need. If you need it, yes. If you don't, no. Like we didn't have, so in the first, like, I don't know, I would say 6 or 7 years of Gilmore's, we didn't have a line of credit or anything. We just kind of did it on cash coming in. And we had the government loan that I had told you about, and a little bit of my personal credit at the start, but there was no business credit card. So, you know, it we grew it, and we didn't really have a whole ton of credit cards that I can say associated to our business development. It's more, as you get bigger and you need the credit or the credit for mortgages or lines of credit for operating and stuff like that, is when credit really becomes important in business. So starting out, number one, you need like business loans. You use your personal credit to get started. Then once you're up and operating, it's not hugely important. And then as you hit a point where you need to grow and blow, that is when it becomes more important.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, Nick, right from the beginning. If you have good cash flow in your business, that's when you have good cash flow. It's not necessary to have a credit card, because it's money in, money out type thing, and you're buying your products and you're selling them, and it's lots of businesses are built with the foundation of not having any credit. That's for sure. So it's not a deal breaker not to have one. So if you get denied by the bank or anybody that's offering credit cards, then just that's so fine. On to the next thing, like you said, because you went back to it before, right? Don't let anybody stand in the way of your goals, your aspirations to be a business in business. Should my husband and I have separate accounts in business, or should my husband and I have separate bank accounts?
Okay, so again, I'm not a couples counselor, and my wife would certainly attest to that statement. But so we'll kind of come at this just from a strictly financial point of view. If it were me, okay, if it were me, I would have one account. If you both work, okay, if you both have jobs, and even if somebody is a homemaker and somebody has an out on the road job, because a homemaker is a job. That's a very important. Looking after the kids, taking care of the house is like number one. That's the most important thing. If your house isn't in order, you're fucked. But if you each have separate accounts where you can like buy each other gifts, or if for Christmas and little spending stuff like that, and then kind of one main account that looks after the bills and looks after mutual expenses, that's always a good way to go. And then maybe a shared credit card. I would say that would be my best answer to that. But again, it could go either way.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. I mean, I'm married, so I can answer this. I can answer this. My wife and I have a joint account. That's every day kind of stuff. Her paycheck comes into it, my paycheck comes into it, and then we have our own account that's separate, right? So she'll send money over to her own account so she can buy, if she wants to buy me presents or different things that she wants to do, and I'll have mine as well. So we have our joint account, and then we have a separate account for her, separate account for me. And then I have several different accounts for business, and then we have some for our rentals and things like that. Our rentals. So, so to answer the person's question, I honestly believe that my husband and I have separate accounts. I think you go with what works for you. For the longest time, my wife and I had separate accounts, and it worked fine. Right? Sometimes we have to move money back and forth, different places for bills and mortgages and things like that. I think the most important thing is how you're setting up your bills being paid, and how's that, how is that working for you, and the account, the account doesn't have to be the focal point. It's how you're allocating your funds to set up your your bills, your mortgages, and things like that.
And you're still an individual. Just because you get married doesn't mean all of a sudden you lose your individuality. You're still a human, you're still a man, you're still a woman, you're still whatever, and you're your own person. So you don't give up that part of yourself. You're you.
Yeah.
And if you want your own account, get your own account. Nobody tells you you can or you can't. But from a financial perspective, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. My wife never talks to me about financial decisions. Should I confront her?
This is like turning into an episode of what's that guy? Is he the father?
Oh yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It slips my mind, but Jerry Springer.
um, so she never talks to me. Yeah, I mean that's a big deal. Okay, so financial decisions. If that means, again, there's no context. So if that's like buying a car, then well, you're kind of a team, so that should be a team decision. So I would say yes, you should talk to her about it. Um, if it's like a house, if it's anything big, then yes, absolutely. It needs to be a team discussion.
And I think that I think the word we need to take out is confront. One of the things, because you just nailed it, Nick. It needs to be, and you said it's the two things that you said that stuck out to me. One, you need to talk to them about it. That's the most important thing that you need to do. Don't confront them. And the second thing is your team, right? So my wife never talks to me about financial decisions, huge decisions like that, car, things like that. Yeah, of course, that needs to be talked about. But I think you need to have an open conversation about it. If you can have an open conversation like, hey, we're in this together. If you can have an open conversation of like, hey, we're in this together, then I think it'll be a lot easier transition from, not talking to each other, from going from not talking to confronting and finding that balance of like, let's have a conversation, right? Of you're not including me in financial decisions. Let's have a conversation. And like, we don't know the context. We don't know who's doing what the responsibilities are in the relationship, but big thing, sit down, have an open and honest conversation. You're a team. If you're in a relationship, you should be in a team. My husband has a huge credit card. My husband has a huge credit card debt. What should I do to help him pay it off?
Um, I guess this is a tough one to answer because we don't really know the situation in terms of the income and how big the credit card is, what the interest rate is. But should I help him pay it off? Yeah. Well, I mean, again, you guys are a team, you're in it together. So his financial success ultimately is your financial success. So I would say yes, like 100%. If my wife was in financial dire and she needed help, of course I would help. Like there's no question. So my answer to this question is yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's you do help you do help them or help him pay it off. I think the big thing too comes down to dialogue, comes down to conversation, comes down to sitting down together as adults and hashing out. Okay, what's the plan, right? Because if you have huge credit card debt and you're going out, you're having beer and wings every
Yeah.
weekend, then you're not really that concerned about your huge credit card debt. And that's okay if you want to live like that, that's okay. But I think that having that conversation and sitting down and being like, okay, here's what we need to do to get this debt paid off. Maybe we don't go on our all-inclusive vacation that we go on every year. Maybe this year we save that $3,000 and just pump it to the credit card and not put it in our savings account. We just put it on the credit card. Like, the big thing, like you said, is yeah, you help them and you help them with a plan. You sit down, you're like, all right, we're in this together. So let's tackle this. Here are some things and here's what I think works for me is saying when you're in that conversation, whoever this person is, when you're in that conversation, write all the things that you're going to do. So here's what I'm going to do to help pay off this debt. And don't use words like to help pay off your debt.
Yeah.
You're going to say things like, here's all the things I'm going to do to help pay off this debt. What are you going to do? And don't say it like that. Maybe say it like, what are you going to do? Right? Not pointing. I get animated about this stuff. I love this kind of stuff. And so they will write down what they need or what they're going to do to pay off the debt, right? And I think that's kind of the approach. If you have that all-encompassing, like, here's what I'm going to do, this is what you're going to do, post it somewhere and hold yourself accountable. Make a list or, check the box every single time you do it, an accountability checklist. But again, if you want one of those, send me a message. We'll be more than happy to send you something from Cashrules. Absolutely. I think that's it. Those are the questions that we had, Nick, and this has been a great episode, and we're wrapping up here on an hour with our first live episode. But before we go, I want to ask you: do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners and our viewers? This is the first one. First of all, before I ask you if you have any parting shots. How did you like the first live episode that we did as a partnership, pal?
Oh, it's great. It's fabulous. I love this. I love doing stuff live and off the cuff because it really gives people an inside look at how genuine this is.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a big rehearsed fucking show and a big production where we're, oh fuck, we gotta, and I'm doing all my research before. Like, this is stuff that I've done, and I'm just regurgitating past experiences in my life to try to help you. So hit me with the questions on the spot, and I'll give the answers if I know them, and if I don't, then I don't. But this kind of, it gives everybody watching an insight into what we're all about, and I think we should do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it. I think it's I think it's a great platform to use, or a great way to get it out there, and like you said, show our listeners the authenticity behind the mayhem, if you will. So before we go, what are some final thoughts that you have for our listeners and our viewers as to the best ways that they can get the most out of their week until next week, as far as money goes, or business, or any parting advice?
Number one, anybody who is listening on any of the listening platforms, or if you're watching live on YouTube, or if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching it on Instagram, whatever, if you are consuming this right now, I want you to go to Dave Ramsey's social media, and I want you to say, go see Nick Gilmore. I want you to talk to him. And I want to talk to Dave Ramsey. I want him to explain these things and these tactics to me so that I understand them better, because I don't understand them, Dave. I don't understand them, Dave, and I don't think they work, my friend. So go there, tell him to see me, and maybe we can get Dave Ramsey on here. Anybody who's listening, do that. The second parting shot, and the most important, people, and this is what you need to take away from all the jokes and all the other stuff out of this: don't let anything stand in your way. You are an individual, and you are unique, and you are you. You make you. You determine your legacy and your path and what you're all about. There's only one you. Make your mom proud. Go out there, kick ass, create good stories and positivity, and shed your light on to other people's lives, and be there when they need you. And we talk about money and how important it is, and yes, it is, totally, but we have one life. So as important as money is, and important as work is, and important as all this other stuff is that we talk about, that's really a small little thing in the big scheme of life. So get your money right so you can get your life right.
I'm Nick Foley. He's Nick Gilmore. This is Cash Rules.